But if you are, then here we go. So this is pretty basic. We're going to go quick on some of this. This is a new project. Save and export, pretty easy if you want to export projects and that sort of thing. And then Start has some nice options. You can scrape for new websites, but if you're in the members area, you already have access to pre-done lists, so you don't need to scrape. Checking present websites, that's scanning websites for contact forms themselves and to see if they actually have a contact form on it. Again, I already do this for you, so all you need to do is actually send the messages, and it has send, and it's going to check here automatically, but there's a setting in the project we have turned on that skips that step to speed things up, since again I've already filtered them for you. You can import URLs and do different things here: import, export, send, delete, scrape, check, send to all, open scheduler. Scheduler's kind of cool because you can actually schedule what you want going on, so the tasks like scraping, checking, and sending, and then how many projects to run at once, and wait till it finishes or switch projects after X minutes, etc. So it's kind of cool. Tools, project settings are the same thing as double clicking on a project. Importing URLs, this adds URLs to a project, same thing as right clicking on this, a lot of it. And so you can rename the project, delete, duplicate, reset, remove different URLs from the project, so like all URLs are the ones that are successful or failed, etc. You can select, remove, and then there's a ton of, I'm not going to go through these, you can read them. They do different things, they select different things. And then you can free up memory. That's like your RAM, your memory in the actual machine itself. If you're running short, you can just free it up and it'll dump everything that's going on. That might, you probably don't want to try to run that during the middle of running projects. I'm not even sure if it works, but anyways, I've never used the free memory. That's just what it does. Options, these are program options. I explained some of this in the settings file, or most of it. This is your checking submission thread. So this is for if you're doing the check present websites like scanning for contact forms or submitting. This is for scraping and searching, like scraping Google. Again, you don't have to do the checking and the scraping. I did all that for you. This gives you a message preview when you click send. This is important. It stops all the projects when there's no proxy. So if all your proxies die, it stops the project so that the projects aren't running and just submitting without proxies. This is just the GUI size, the size of your window itself. You can set it to auto, or you can adjust it to whatever you want to do. So like if I wonk it here and hit 200, it'll say that I got to restart the program before changes apply. And so the timeout, the max is 120. I always leave it at 120. If you need to go faster, you can go slower, and you can lower that. But then you're going to lose out on some contact forms that are slow. So it might, again, slow you down, but I'm going for success on my projects and not like accuracy over speed. So you can do what you want there. Additional time to wait between search queries. So when you're scraping Google for a list of keywords, again, if you have the list from the members area, you don't need to do that. But let's say you were. This is how it's a delay that you can add, so to slow it down so it doesn't burn out your proxies. If you go to the global filter section, this is a global blacklist. You can add, edit, delete, export, that sort of thing. This is a list of sites that I, as well as GSA, has identified that are just problematic. These people complain, or they filed abuse reports with hosting, that sort of thing. It's not an extensive list. It's not that big of a list, so I always enable it. If you put in like millions in here of URLs, that could slow GSA down, but like the ones that come here and even adding your own is definitely a good thing, so I always enable that. And disallow different projects to send to the same website. If you had a million URLs and you're just scraping a list of keywords, you can use this to continue to scrape all kinds of URLs and not have to filter them. GSA is going to keep track of whether or not it's already submitted to that, so that you don't wind up sending the same message to the same contact form like 38 times, basically. And so the last thing here is notification. It's kind of cool. You basically put in your email server information, and then it can send you a report every X often, so you kind of get a report. So like I used to do it like once a day, kind of look at the status of it, see what projects are running. If you have like 2 projects running on your machine, this is probably not useful. If you have like 4 servers running GSA website contact and you're trying to manage them and run a business, you can get a daily report or however often you want, and then you can kind of see the status of everything. Oh, I've got 9 campaigns that are about to end. I need to go take care of those or whatever. And so that's the global options. Help is pretty easy. There's different stuff under here. I'm not going to go too deep. There's a disclaimer and a manual. There's a version history homepage for the software. There's a forum, which is a great forum. I'm on there, and there's a lot of great stuff there. You can go here and go here. I'm not sure what this is. It's a link to something. Create a bug report and check for updates. You can register and then learn about the program. And so I went and looked at this help thing. It's actually it's a link to my page where you can buy the lists. So if you're already in the members area, then you already have the list and that sort of thing. So that's what that is. And under quit, obviously that's pretty basic. You can quit. If we click on a project, this is the other half. So the first half was program stuff. This is the actual project. I went over a lot of this in the project setup file. But we'll go over it again. You can use proxies for search engines. Again, if you're using them, you can also click this and change it to all types, public and private. And then you can configure proxies. So you can set up proxies here and test them and that sort of thing with test proxies. And you can also go here to options. And there's a ton of options. I won't go too deep into this. But you can search proxies. So like on my servers, I have it set up to automatically look for proxies every 60 minutes, and it pulls them from a file. And then I have a script that goes out to the proxy provider, grabs the proxies every so often, and updates that file because proxies change or they die or whatever. And so that way it's kind of like a hands-off effect. You can also search for public proxies and a bunch of other stuff, or you don't really have to use this segment. But it's kind of nice to have things like it can remove bad proxies when they're older than whatever, and you can automatically disable the proxies if it's noted to be down. I don't know, whatever you really want to do here, but there's some nice options for automating proxy management, or you can just add proxies in, test them, and then you're done and you're good and you can just use it. And the proxies, when you click into here, this is the same. So like when you go into checking and use, it's the same proxies that are loaded in there. You do control the type, so private and public and that sort of thing, but it's all the same dialogue. So if you load them in one section, that works for all of them. Collect social data. It's kind of cool. It gets you various social data off of the website, and it gives you the URL, like links to their Facebook page or their Twitter page, that sort of thing. So if you want to take that data later and dump it in an Excel file and use it in the message, you can use tokens. I'm not going into that on this video or any of the videos that are just basic. But you can take other data on an Excel sheet and dump it in, like their name, for instance, and then make a token in the message and load in that CSV file or Excel sheet. I think it's CSV, and then pull. So when it makes the message and say, "Hi Bob, I was at your Twitter page," and it links to their Twitter page, and I noticed that you need some help marketing or whatever. So that's what that does. You can do with it as you choose. This is keywords if you want to load them in, and this is for scraping. Again, you don't need to do this if you have the list from the members area, but you could load them in and scrape your own sources with your own keywords. And then there's just some settings here. You can skip different keywords or repeat the search when finished, extract root domains only. And then these are all the search engines you can use. And you can right click and do some different things like select none, select all. You can check by mask and country and language and the rest. You can add in your own URLs as well for this thing. But that's basically this is all related to scraping. So the only thing that really matters if you're using the list from the members area is the collect social data. You can turn it on or off. It doesn't hinder or help anything. If you want to use the social data though, it's there. Filtering. So this is all pre-set up with the file that you get in the members area. So this all comes, but basically you can accept websites from the following language or accept websites from the following countries. So if you want to filter out and select only certain countries and languages, you can do that. You can also accept duplicate domains, different contact forms on the same domain. You want to be careful with that because you might submit, again, 38 times to the same domain. If they put more than one contact form on the same domain and it all goes to the same person or something, then that could be problematic. These are filters right here that I've just built. They help filter out things like ticket systems that use a form that looks similar to a contact form, review systems, testimonial systems, things like that. All this stuff. So you can customize this and change it if you want. I'm not really going to go into why it's all set up this way because that's too deep. But if you need some help on that, you can check out the GSA forum, which is linked under the help section. And checking, this is for checking contact forms, like scanning websites to find contact forms. If you only wanted to select certain ones for some reason, like a particular language or something, you could do that. I don't uncheck any of these, and you don't have to use this tab again if you're using the list from the members area, but it's there. This add domain redirects as new websites. This is tricky because you might have 7 different websites, 7 different URLs on different websites that all redirect back to the same domain. And so you might then wind up submitting to the same domain 7 times because they're all redirecting back to it. But at the same time, I turn this on when I'm scanning new forms, but not usually necessarily when I'm sending them. But that's what it does. It just looks to see if it's 301 or 302 or something like that, the URL, then should it follow it and post to it, or should it ignore it? If you uncheck it, it ignores it. If you check it, it follows it and posts if any forms found on the future page. And this skip sublink parsing, that is where it skips this this plus check set up here. So when you choose to send the messages, it just loads the page and sends the message. Otherwise, it loads the page, checks to see if there's a contact form, and then tries to send the message. So that saves a step by checking that, and you're using what it needs here, import direct URLs with contact forms. That's what I provide. So that's why that is checked. You can uncheck it if you need to. Under submission content, so we're going to spend a minute here, and actually I'm just going to talk about the other sections for a second and come back to submission content last. CAPTCHA is pretty basic. You can add in CAPTCHA services. There's a lot of them in here. In fact, I don't think you can. It's still going off the screen. So there's just a lot that you can add in here. GSA Capture Breaker is their capture breaking product, which comes preset up here in my file, but you can add in others. And this bypass host file, this is probably important for you to know. If you check this box, you're not going to be able to use emulation services. So like if you are trying to use GSA Capture Breaker or some other program to emulate like image typers or something like that and redirect through the host file, if you place it, or xevil, etc., if you place a check mark in that file, then it's going to skip that and go straight to that CAPTCHA service, and so it might foul things up for you. If you don't know what the host file is, then that's really beyond this video. So I actually have another video on this, I think, on YouTube. But anyways, that's just kind of an important thing to note if you're having issues with the CAPTCHAs. Use CAPTCHA services in random order if you want to. Scheduler, this is really cool. You can schedule projects to go after another. I use this sometimes, or you can schedule them during certain times, like if you want to only post during business hours because you send out a message and someone replies at 3 o'clock in the morning in their own time zone, or maybe at at 9 o'clock at night because they're up working late and you're already off for the day, and then you don't reply till the next day. I've had a lot of clients that only wanted to do it during business hours because people reply and do a lot of stuff the exact same day they get the message sometimes. So you can mess with that, and then notes if you want to leave yourself notes about what this project is about. So I brought it out here a little bit because when we go to the submission content tab, which is where we're going now, you need a little bit more room to see things going on. And so there's empty field up here at the top, and thanks for sticking with me. It's been almost 15 minutes. So let's talk submission content because this is all important stuff. The empty field to the top, leave it alone. This is for there's protection on some forms that says, leave this field empty if you're a human being, and robots like this that are just programs a lot of times will fill that in automatically. So this specifically looks for those boxes and leaves them empty so that the submission will go through. And it needs to be at the top of the list. You can move these up and down like in order, like you can squirrel around with it. I don't know why you would, but you can. And if it makes it easier for you, some of them you don't use, whatever, you can push those to the bottom, make it simple. This one needs to be at the top because of the execution order, so I would just leave that one at the top. First name and last name, pretty basic. Also, if you click on this, you can change it. When it says self-defined, you can click on it and then you can input data. Again, with the empty box, you don't want to do that. For first name, for example, if I click on it, I see this kind of a dialog box because it's going to pick a random first name from the file that it has. Now, the name of this is first name. That's the name of the field. And then the type is text. I wouldn't change the name or the type unless you have a specific reason to. Also, this identify field is how it's looking for it in the form. Don't mess with any of this unless you know what you're doing. How to fill the form, this you can mess with. So if you want it to be a random first name, you can do that. Self-defined, this is where I type in my own name like Ryan or whatever name you need to type in. Or if I needed this to be a random email or a random state, but if I choose random state, it's going to pick a random state and submit it as the first name. So it's going to come through like I'm in the state of Michigan in the United States. It's going to come through as my first name is Michigan. Now that's going to sound stupid, especially if I go down here and pick something else random like a zip code, Michigan and some random zip code. So you want to be realistic here. Obviously, random state, this one needs to be either self-defined or random name. So you can choose self-defined, and once you choose self-defined, then it gives you this box. And when you go back to it, sometimes when you click on this, it brings up that other thing where it lets you pick non-self-defined. So sometimes you have to click here, although right now it's not doing it, so maybe they changed it recently. I don't know. Anyways, you click on it, and you can right-click here and get other stuff. Actually, I take that back. You have to click edit to get back to that box. But anyways, self-defined, now I can type in Ryan, as my first name, or Lisa, whatever the name you're submitting is, that sort of thing. And same thing with the last name. It's set for random last name, and now we know how it works. We can go in here and put it as self-defined, or we can let it pick a random last name. Also, the company, you can put in your company name or let it pick a random name. And then title, this is, if you're I don't know, the president, the CEO, if you are the chief cook and bottle washer, whatever you are. You can put in a title if it wants a title there. Random email, if you want them to reply to you, you need to change this to self-defined, because if it picks a random email, like you would use random email maybe, I guess, I never do. You could use random email if you were trying just you're going to put a call to action in the message, right? Because you want them to do something when you send them a message. So whether they reply to you or click on a link, if they're clicking on a link, you could put in a random email, because the point is for them to click a link, and if they reply to this random email, it's not going to matter. You're never going to get it. But if you want them to reply to you and you do random email, they're going to be replying to an email that doesn't exist, and you're never going to get anywhere. So put your email address in there if you want them to reply, and maybe even if you don't want them to reply, put in a real email address just so it doesn't bounce when they send a message and say, well, who is this? I'm not clicking the links. Phone number for phone and fax, pretty basic. Website, this would be your website. Some fields ask for it. Some forms, you can put it a website you want them to go to, or you can just not. You can leave it blank and it'll try to fill it as blank if you don't have a website for them to go to. Street address, city, and zip code are pretty basic postal code parts of an address. The county, this is not country, this is county. So like, for example, Detroit, Michigan happens to be in Wayne County. So when I lived in Phoenix, Arizona, it was Maricopa County. So you can put in your county here. And then state, in the U.S., it's, there's states in lots of countries. I don't know all the states in all the countries. So I'm using U.S. when I say these as an example, because that's where I live. As far as the country itself, this is the actual country, France, USA, Australia, whatever. And then the subject of the message. The two probably most important fields are subject and message, because the subject determines on whether or not they're going to open it, right? Because that subject line is often passed as the subject. You submit the contact form, it goes to a server that then sends it to the person at the business in an email. Means I'm selling SEO service and I'm trying to contact a barber in my area to get them to work on their SEO site. When I submit the message, their website then sends the email to the barber themselves or whoever's reading their email, in case it's a person asking a question about when they're open, if they can come get a haircut or whatever. Right, so that subject line is often passed as the subject of the email. So if you put in something totally stupid or unrelated, or something that doesn't really make sense, then they may not even open the email in the first place, so your message never gets read. Obviously, you can do research on email marketing. Same thing here. Subject is very important. The only purpose of the subject is to sell the open of the email and read the message. And so this is the message itself, where you put it in, and obviously you can make these things bigger because it's hard to type a message. It's going to come out just like you type it, so if you put line breaks and stuff when you type it, it will actually come out that way. You can put URLs in here as well and that sort of thing. You cannot put HTML as a general rule. That's important to know, because when you submit the contact form, And I realize I've been talking now for over 20 minutes, so thanks for staying with me. But message is really important. When you submit the contact form, if you try to format it as a web page like you could an email, all of that HTML will get stripped out as a general rule by the website you submit the contact form to, and then you're just going to be left with what looks probably doesn't make sense, or it'll be submitted as straight HTML, plain text. So the page won't render with images, and as a web page, when it's read in the email client, it'll just be like looking at HTML in Notepad, or the source code like Control D, or inspecting an element in a browser. And that's the quickest way to get your email deleted. So as a general rule, I found most do that. I don't use HTML. I just put the website in there, like http:/google.com or whatever you're doing. And so that's the message. Obviously, the message is the most important part, writing a good message. My experience has always been shorter is better than longer. Even a short spammy message gets better results than a long, like 5-paragraph pointed message. And so if you're great at sales copy, go for it. But otherwise, if in doubt, shorter is better. And I'm talking 3 to 5 sentences. Raise a problem, ask a question, whatever, provide a solution, and then a call to action. Send me an email, reply to this email, go to this link, whatever. Newsletter. It's a checkbox. It's set to 0. A lot of these contact forms say, would you like to sign up for our newsletter? So the barber says, would you like to sign up for the monthly newsletter that I'm going to send out, or the weekly, or the daily, or the 10 times a day email? And if you do nothing, they will automatically sign you up, and then you get tons and tons and tons of newsletters forever in your inbox. Because if you want someone to reply to you, you have to use a real email, so you're going to get all that too. And you're going to get some of it no matter what, because sometimes they don't ask, they just sign you up. But this 0 here means no, unchecked, don't sign me up. So don't mess with that. And then the last thing here, name. This is the full name. I don't know why it's way down here. I think that may have been an accident on my part. Usually it's up here by this. So if my name is Lisa Smith, for example, I can't even spell today. Lisa Smith, right? So my name's Lisa Smith. You want to come down here, and you can do, I think these tokens grab the first name and the last name here and put it together, because you don't want it to say Lisa Smith in part of the message, part of the form, and then come down here and say Bob Applegate, because it's like, what? That doesn't make sense, right? So I think these tokens grab that and put it in there automatically. If not, you could remove that and put Lisa Smith, because some contact forms ask for a first name, last name, some just ask for name. And so that is all of that. And this is the macros I was talking about, where you can use different things. You can use Spintax, I think it is. You can use macros for dropping in things. There's a macro help link here, and you can click that to get to a web page on macros. And then seconds between download and submission, just quickly on these, and then we're done. This is useful because some websites, like if you download the form and submit the form, a half a second later, no human being can download a contact form, read it, type everything in, and hit submit. So if you run into, especially if you're submitting to something like if you were going to try to go submit to a whole bunch of realtors and you're submitting through one portal that all these realtors use, then that they may be looking at all that. So you might want to run this up and add some delay, or even maybe a second or two delay. I think there was a WordPress plugin that said it can't be faster than a second or it's spam or something like that. You can do some research, but that's what that delay does. Submission URL must be website URL. If you hover over these, sometimes it tells you, like some contact forms use like a different contact form, and so you're really submitting to abc.com when the contact form is actually on like barbersrus.com, right? So if you leave this checked, it'll make sure that you're submitting only to the website. Well, if that makes sense, I don't know how to explain it better. So you can read the little tooltips here. If in doubt, you can uncheck it, and then if you run into a problem later, just replace the check mark. But otherwise, probably going to get technically a few more submissions if you uncheck it, if we can say it like that. Filter out comment forms. Detection could fail. You don't want to. So there's comment forms on websites, right, where you can go and leave a comment on the website. This is trying to filter those out, because sometimes those forms to a program like this can look just like the contact form. And some of the filters I have going over here are all built around that same concept, filtering out things that aren't contact forms. But you can try it. It's saying detection could fail because it could technically lower success rate a little bit, but it's probably a good thing to leave checked in my opinion. Retry to submit to previously failed submissions. That makes sense. I usually leave that checked, but that's if you're running the project over and over again. I reset my project each time, so it doesn't really matter. Like clear everything and re-import a new list that I've filtered. Record website form fields. It's going to save off like every single form field of the contact form in a file. So if you want to go do debugging and try to build in more filters to improve accuracy, use that. Otherwise, that's just a waste. Congratulations, you made it. It's been like 27 minutes. But that is kind of the walkthrough of all the definitions of GSA website contact and how the general overview of how everything works. Thanks for sticking with me, and I wish you success.